Hey everybody, welcome back to more Hearthstone card reveals. Now, the Hunter reveals is what I'm going to do in this video. And by the way, it was Rogue reveals today. I wasn't wrong in the last episode. But Hunter had half of its reveals delayed, so half of these actually came out like a week ago, so you may have seen them by now. But I wanted to do them all together. There's actually still one Hunter card missing from the package, I believe. I don't know when that one is being revealed. I don't know if it's BlizzCon or if it's the reveal tomorrow, but whatever, we're going with the 9 cards they've shown so far, and I'll tack the other one onto the end of another video or something. Just as a reminder, we have seen some of the Hunter cards already. When we had the big neutral reveal and the set reveal, they showed off Felger in the Lost, the 4-mana 3/4 Battlecry. If your deck has no duplicates, gain immune and attack all enemies. And also Messenger Buzzard, which was a 2-mana 1/2 beast. Death Rattle, draw a beast, give minions in your hand +1/+1. This kind of alludes to the idea that they were going to get some sort of beast hand buff package maybe, and then I don't know what the Feldrin was going for, like some sort of control value deck maybe through Hunter. Anyway, the first one I'm going to deal with is Felger in the Lost now that we've seen more of the cards. I think it's terrible. I just don't think this is going to be worth it. I don't think Highlander Hunter is going to be worth it. In the past we've had Highlander Hunter, which summoned King Crush, I believe was his effect. It was like a 4-mana card as well. But it was like cheating out like 7 mana or something. And that's an okay deal. It's kind of hard to evaluate the cost value from the card that you need to get for having no duplicates in your deck. Because obviously having no duplicates in your deck means you're running only singletons. And typically your decks are made up of multiple duplicates. And, you know, you're playing around 15 different cards. Okay, legendaries included as well. Maybe slightly less than that. Or slightly more than that even. Sometimes, though, you know, your deck, you get like 26 cards or something, and there's this 4-card variety where no one's exactly sure how good this card is. But it wasn't good enough that you would instantly put it into your deck. Feldrin and all these Highlander decks, they make you put those cards in, and plus the ones that you, like, cut out as well. So if you deem not good enough for a normal deck, you have to put it into your Highlander deck. So you need to get compensated for putting what are typically worse than average cards into your deck. Now, historically, I know this is maybe a bit of an unfair example. Dragon Queen Alex Strahz saw a lot of play because this was a 9-mana 8/8 dragon that gave you 2 other random dragons to your hand. They cost 0 on the Frizio that you had no duplicates in your deck. Now, 2 random dragons obviously can range in value, and also depending on what the set was around it. But typically, this is discounting something like, I don't know, 14 mana worth of stats. And then some decks like Rogue might bounce this back, you know. Whatever I'm saying, it was just a big swing turn, right? You're getting like this 14 mana cheat plus the Dragon Queen. You'd get a big board from it. Felgerin, it's just not all that in a bag of potato chips, right? 4 mana 3/4 attack all enemies and you're immune. So it's like 4 mana. You play a 3/4, which is understated already. Do 3 to all, which is like all minions, which is like Fire Sale or something along those lines. And then 3 to the face as well. The deal just doesn't quite cut the mustard, I think, for Hunter. Especially Hunter right now that has like the Arcane package and the Big Beast package. Both of which can really just churn out more damage than Feldrin is offering. And I just don't think I don't think he's watched the art of the deal. Let's put it that way. Now, there are ways to improve him. Lorthamar, Theron would probably make its way into one of these Highlander Hunter decks if you were wishing to run it. In which case you could dupe its attack and health to make it a 6/8. Okay, 6 damage rush, that's a bit more palatable. As I said, you're running these one-off cards. You then have to play Lorthamar before it. Do you want to wait? Probably not. Also, just to give an example to this card and why I think it's not going to be particularly good or particularly played. There are these 2 cards in Warrior. Now, Warrior is a class that is more known for having more control options, I would say. And I would kind of say that Feldrin is more towards like a control-like package. It does obviously have some aggression to it that it hits the face right, which is equivalent to having charge, but you're also getting it to hit all minions along the way. Because 4 mana for 3 damage to the face is not particularly good value. Decimator Olgra and Trenchstalker, neither of which require you to run duplicates in your deck in a class that's probably more amenable to this, and also has more hand buff cards, don't see play right now. Arguably, Decimator Olgra might be better value for the cost as well. And then there are other cards in the Warrior that can even buff the stats even higher than this to turn Trench Stalk into like one-turn kills. And they're too slow, they don't see play, therefore Feldrin, by that logic, won't see play either. The only way he would see play is if there was particularly aggressive decks out there, more aggressive than the Hunter, where you'd need some like control options just to deal with it, and then maybe you consider Feldrin, but I still think there's better options out there. I still think you'd probably run Prison Breaker over it, to be honest with you, even after it's been nerfed. Anyway, we've talked enough about this card. Messenger Buzzers was the other card that was revealed early on. 2 mana 1/2 Beast, Death Rattle, draw a beast, give minions in your hand, +1/+1. That's a reasonable deal. There's a lot of good beasts in Hunter. And a lot of good beasts that you would like to, buff as well. Like Crush hitting for 9 instead, that's pretty nice. Hollowhound, which attacks, almost like in a cone, the front minions next to it. Giving that +1/+1 is like giving it +3/+3, right? That's a really good deal for you. Shadehound, which I think might see some play in some sort of aggro beastie deck. Also, it living through attacks mean you get more buffs to your other beasts, so maybe that is going to be a potential thing. And then Bunny Stomper is the beast that's coming out in neutral with this set. I think that's going to be in the Beast Hunter deck, and it's also not the worst beast to get, because it makes your other beasts that get these stats attack faster as well, so it's a pretty good card to have. Now, the card is a 2 mana 1/2 that's understated. If you look at drawing a card and giving it 1/1, just that card, that treats this as like 2 mana 2/3 draw a card, but it's a bit slow because you're getting the 1/1 later. That's obviously not good value. If you're buffing 2 cards, and note as well, it does say draw a beast, but give your minions. It doesn't have to be beast the ones in your hands. But spoilers, I think a lot of them will be beasts. I think that if you're hitting 2 of these, you're getting just about the right level of value to make this palatable. I think, though, you're going to be looking at trying to hit 3 or 4 things in your hand. If you hit 3 or above, you're getting a really, really good deal. Also, it tutors for beasts. Tutoring cards often see play for various reasons. If a particularly broken beast comes out in the future, or you just want like one other beast that you can somehow copy multiple times, like a la King Crush has happened in the past, you might want to just run this Buzzard for its draw a beast effect, even. But this is where we left off from the neutrals. We didn't know what the rest of the package was going to be. But now we know. It's a lot more beasties. We have the Bovine Skeleton, 3 mana 3/3 Undead Beast. Death Rattle. If this has 4 or more attack, summon a Bovine Skeleton, i.e. it resummons itself. But without, the buff on it. Now, this card has seen... Well, this text has been seen on a card before. Do you remember Recurring Villain from the Shadows, I believe, set? This was a 5 mana 3/6 Death Rattle. If this minion has 4 or more attack, resummon it. So this is a better statted card. It's still understated for a 3 mana, but it's better statted than Recurring Villain. Recurring Villain saw 0 play, basically. It was not a particularly good card. However, Bovine Skeleton has some things going for it. Firstly, it has a tribe associated with it, and it has 2 tribes. It has both Beast synergy and Undead synergy, which, might make all the difference, especially when there's a lot of cards in Hunter that might buff beasts in particular. For example, the Messenger Buzzard we just talked about, draw a beast, give minions in your hand +1/+1. Very easy to get this to a 4/4 and then it resummons itself. There are a bunch of bananas. You can give your minions bananas, and then you could imagine that you give it a banana, your opponent kills it, you get another Bovine Skeleton, you give it another banana, put some meat on this guy's bones, and he just keeps coming back again and again. Thornmantle Musician, you could finale it, and potentially the next beast you summon is the Bovine Skeleton. That might turn into a 4/4 again. And even if this just dies once on a 4 attack, at the very least, if you had it as a 4/3, it's a 3 mana 4/3 that summons a 3/3. That's pretty good value in total. Again, it's a bit slow though because it's a Death Rattle, not a Battle Cry, so that makes you a little bit sadder, but it's reasonable for the cost. Also, don't forget the location Castle Kennels. Because it's a beast, you could give it +2 attack and give it rush, so you get to push 5 damage to an opponent minion. This might die in the process, but then you get a 3/3 back, which you might then want to buff again with another card. So you can get like 3 Bovine Skeletons instead. There's also this card, which I honestly forgot completely existed, Bestial Madness. Give +1 attack to all minions in your hand, deck, and battlefield. That means your bovine skeletons would come preloaded with 4 attack when they come from your deck. And spoilers for cards ahead, there are other cards that will reward you for having increased attack. And then finally, there's this card. And you're like, hang on a minute, I've not seen that card. I know I'm being very sneaky. Because this is also a new card. 4 mana Camouflage Mount. Give a minion +3/+3 and a random bonus effect. When it dies from the Chameleon. Now, this isn't immediately clear exactly what this does on the card. And it took me a little bit of figuring out, honestly. So what this card does, and apologies for the really poor cutting out here. I was a little bit lazy. So you give a minion +3/+3, and then the minion will get either Divine Shield, Wind Fury, Stealth, Rush, Taunt, Poisonous, Lifesteal, or Reborn. A la the Spark bots, right? This is kind of like the Spark bot Hunter equivalent. And when that minion dies, you summon a Chameleon, which all these are 3/3/3 beasts, and they will have that bonus effect as well. So, like, let's say you threw this onto... I can't even think of a minion right now. Let's say you put it on Cane Lantron. Why not? Cane Lantron will do. You give it +3/+3, he just by chance gets Wind Fury. When he dies, he will spit out Chameleon with Wind Fury on it. That's how this works. This is really, really good value, and it's actually a super, super scary card for an aggro Beast Hunter deck, which I think might be a thing. Why? Well, kind of you to ask. 4 mana for 3/3 of stats is obviously not great. 4 mana for 3/3 stats with a bonus effect, you can kind of treat that as like another like mana on it. Okay, it's interesting, but probably slightly undervalued still. It then gives you a 3/3 with an effect on it. Now we're talking. That's like, I don't exactly know how to value this, but somewhere around like a 2 mana benefit or something, maybe 2.5 mana benefit. That's pretty spooky. And then some of these effects, you know, not all the random effects are made equally. But if you get Wind Fury on a beast and your opponent can't or hasn't dealt with it because, you know, it's on your board, that Blighter is going to hit you for at least 6 additional damage from the +3/+3. And you know you have to deal with the Chameleon that's coming out from it because it's going to do 6 more damage. Reborn means the minion's going to be sticky if it's just smacking you in the face and you're like, holy shit, I need to stop this. Good luck, because you're going to have to deal with that minion with Reborn, and when it dies, it's going to kick out Chameleon with Reborn, which will then die and kick out a Chameleon. You get the drift, and the original minion would come back, and that would kick out a Chameleon with Reborn? Question mark? I don't know. Sometimes as well, Hunter wants a little bit of lifesteal. Sometimes you want Rush to, you know, push the damage quicker. Divine Shield makes it harder to remove. Stealth allows you to, you know... Imagine the Mech Rogues right now. The minion could stay on the board and you would give it another buff in the future. Like maybe you got 2 of these in hand, you get +3/+3 stealth. You don't attack with it, you keep it stealthed. You play another one of these on top of it and you get Wind Fury and you've basically won the game. Like, this is a truly scary card. You will want to kill Hunter minions and not give them the chance to run one of these camouflage mounted minions into you. It's just too big a risk to take. I think that the two, like, the weaker ones from this, Poisonous is probably fairly weak for this deck. You normally want Poisonous on something with really, like, low attack and very high health. +3/+3 onto a minion, it might still die during the process of Poisonous. Your opponent still has to deal with it. And Taunt, some situations you might want the Taunt in the mirror, but it's slower value. Now, we have seen Mount cards before, and I do look forward to potentially them coming back. Maybe this is a hint that they are coming back. Ramming Mount saw play in Hunter in the past. This was a 3-mana card that gave a minion +2/+2 and immune while attacking. And when it died, it summoned a Ram, which was a 2/2 minion. I think it was also immune while attacking, but I don't remember that. Ramming Mount saw play in Hunter. It saw it in aggressive Beast Hunter build, and I think Camouflage Mount might be better than it. Or at least in some cases is better than it. Some cases maybe a little bit worse, but... I think it's equivalent, and I definitely think this will go into a Beast Hunter deck. We've also got Saddle Up. 3 mana spell. Give your minions Death Rattle. Summon a random beast that costs 3 or less. Okay, now we're talking. So this is not just like the big Beast Hunters we've been seeing up until now. This card is rewarding you for going very wide with lots of little beasts. A la like a token Druid deck. We've not really had a truly aggressive Face Hunter for a decent amount of time. You might be able to put lists forward, but they're not as good as they were in the past, in my opinion. Now, if, Hunter has some cards to generate multiple minions quickly, throwing a saddle up on them, again, it makes your minions sticky. They can just keep running to the face. And that's a nightmare to deal with, especially since you're getting 3 or less. So if you hit saddle up on 2 minions, and they kick out 3-cost minions, you've, cheated 3 mana. Okay, that's a pretty high roll, but if you're getting, I don't know where the tipping point's going to be, but I suspect it's around 3 minions on the board with saddle up, you're almost certainly going to make a profit from that, right? Even if you summon 1 cost beast from that, you're probably not going to be too disappointed. A little bit salty, I'll admit. 4 or more, you're always going to get some value. Now, you might be saying, what are the beasts that cost 3 or less? Well, there's a huge pool of them, because notice as random beasts, it's not a beast from its class, necessarily. So you might find Messenger Buzzard or Bovine Skeleton, which both have Death Rattles as well, as a further note. So you probably want beasts that come out with Death Rattles or Auras rather than Battle Cries, because you won't get the Battle Cry effect. So these 2 would be a pretty good get. Bottom Feeder, the Druid card, would also be a pretty good get for this deck. Especially if you're running stuff like the Beast Bow that lets you dredge from the bottom of the deck, so you can pull these bottom feeders back up and just keep playing them out there and out there. Now, there are some bad rolls as well. You could get an Explosive Sheep and have big sad cry times, but hey, that's going to be the risk you're going to take playing this card. Obviously, the easiest comparison to this card is something like Soul of the Forest. That was a 3-mana Druid spell that gave your minions Death Rattle summon a 2/2 Treant. You'd argue a 2/2 Treant is something like 1.5 mana in cost. So you might say Saddle Up is very equivalent to it, because you're kind of getting, on average, a 2-mana card. Maybe slightly upgraded from Soul of the Forest, but there are some bad rolls, as I said. So sometimes it's going to be better than Soul of the Forest, sometimes it's going to be worse, but I think more often than not it's going to be better. And Soul of the Forest saw a lot of play in Token Druid decks, and even still sees play in Token Druid decks to this day. So I think Saddle Up, if it has the token support, will see play. And here is some token support. 1-mana spell, Sneaky Snakes. Summon 2/1/1 snakes with stealth. Now, this is very close to the card. Sorry, I put this so close to the other one, I don't know what I'm doing. This is so close to Living Roots, which was a nature spell from Druid that's 1 mana, and you can choose to do either 2 damage or summon 2/1/1 saplings. Often for the token decks, you'll get the 2/1/1 saplings, obviously, to buff them in the future. And that's not playing token decks. The Sneaky Snakes have another sneaky little trick up their sleeve. Because they have stealth, they are harder to remove. So you could conceivably play these on the board on turn 1, and then buff them in the future and just leave them in stealth. So we can kind of get a picture now of the beast synergy. You're probably going to play your Sneaky Snakes on 1. On 2, you're going to play your Buzzard and start buffing stuff. You might even play your Spirit Potion to get you even wider aboard. Then on 3, you saddle up, you hit your snakes with stealth, you hit the Poacher, maybe another minion that comes from that. And on turn 4, you assume you're going to have a minion left because the saddle up will give you beast as well. You hit it with a mount, that makes that minion even stickier. This is horrible to deal with. This 1, 2, 3, 4, real bad. Now, it will have big sad cry time if it goes up against Priest with their 1-mana silence on minions, but hell, this deck's going to always have a sad time going up against Control Priest, I think. So I think Sneaky Snakes will see play in this deck. I think it's going to be a more aggressive beast deck than what we're used to recently. And this will be the turn 1 play you really want. And I think you're going to try and leave these snakes in stealth for you to saddle them up or give them a mount. Or even using the location, just start buffing these things. Because for all you know, if you leave these in stealth, a bit like, again, Mech Rogue, you might be able to go Wind Fury on one of these bad boys in the future. And again, that's going to be a horrible thing to deal with. If you've put the Kennel on it and turned them into 3/1s, you put a 3/3 Wind Fury on it, that thing on turn 4 is running at you for 12 damage. And it's going to kick out a 3/3 with Wind Fury. That is really scary. Not a lot of decks will be able to deal with that. Now, you might be saying, we've done all this, but what after? What then? Well, then we get to the legendary Spurfang, the 5-mana 2/5 beast. And honestly, it is just the garlic butter for your food. It just makes things more delicious. Battlecry and Death Rattle. Summon a random beast with cost equal to this minion's attack. Now we're talking about value. So obviously this is pretty understated. It's 7 attack and defense in total for 5 mana. That's not a particularly good deal. However, you're guaranteed at the very least to get an additional 2 mana beast on top of that. That takes you towards, this is okay card territory. But if you buff this bad boy, you're not only going to get his effect potentially on the Battle Cry, you're also getting it on the Death Rattle. It's almost like a double mana cheat, which is leads potential to ramp into absurdity. Now, we've already shown through some of these cards. There are ways to give this a buff in the hand. Not as many as on the field, though. There's Messenger Buzzard, could Tutor for Spurfang, give it +1/+1, great deal. Bestial Madness, that's going to hit minions on the hand deck battlefield. Again, makes your Spurfang better for the Battle Cry and for the Death Rattle. You might even want to bounce this bad boy back before the Death Rattle to give it 2/2 with the Sullen Brewmaster. Spoilers, I don't think you will, but I just put that up there as well, because I think that might be the only other way to give it a hand buff in this deck. Plus, then you could give it buffs on the field. Give it a Castle Kennels. Like, you're not really interested in the health as much, more than so than the attack. Turn that into a 4/5, and with Rush as well. That's a pretty solid turn you're looking at. And again, the Camouflage mount, if you throw a mount on this Spurfang, like you top deck this at turn 9, you have the mount in hand, you turn this into a 5/8 with even a low roll like Rush. Okay, it then spits out a 2-cost minion when it comes out. It then spits out a 5-cost minion when it dies, assuming you put nothing else on it, which then also spits out a 3-cost minion from the Camouflage mount. I'm telling you, Hunter are going to have boards that are super obnoxious to deal with, and Spurfang is going to be one of those obnoxious cards. Now, how obnoxious, it sort of depends on some of the breaking points of this card. And I've not included all the mana costs here, because the 2 and 3 and 4 range are kind of absurd. There is a really sweet spot, though. If you can get this to 7 mana, i.e. 7 attack that it kicks out at the... Sorry, I'll kick a 7 mana minion out at the end, so it has 7 attack. A lot of the Colossi fall in that 7 mana range. So you could get something like Kalak, which would be pretty nice again to restore some health to you if you need it. You could get Blackwater Behemoth, again, nice health gain, also pretty fast option. You don't want to deal with Glug in this deck, right? Imagine you play Spurfang, it kicks out Glug, and you put your Death Rattle into 3-cost minions on it. You are in trouble. Mucho trouble. And then if you've put on here Mythical Terror, which doesn't really see any play, you could force your opponent's board to attack into that minion. So if you're playing like the mirror matchup, and you just generate this control card and you just wipe their board, they're going to be real sad. Now, there are some downsides to the 7 mana pool. I've not put all of them up here, though, again. There's some more mid options on this. The 2 real poor ones, though, are a Red Herring, which is still at the very least Taunt, and Nelly would also be a pretty bad roll because you don't get its Battle Cry, right? But it's still a decent amount of stats, right, for what was a 5-cost minion. Then in 5 mana land, which is another kind of weird territory, the only 5-cost beast right now is Spurfang, and I don't think it can generate itself. It doesn't say that explicitly, but I'm pretty certain that was something that Hearthstone changed some time ago about cards, cyclically generating themselves. Which means the only other 3 cards are Shadehound, Sinrunner, and Stranglethorn Tiger. Sinrunner is a great arena stomper from what I'm aware of. Death Rattle destroying enemy minion is pretty obnoxious to play against. You can play around it, but as I said, it's not particularly fun. Stranglethorn Tiger is going to be in stealth. That's going to give you potentially a turn if your opponent can't deal 5 non-specific damage to buff it again on the next round. So I think Stranglethorn Tiger is actually an oddly really good pick. And then the Shadehound, if you go for a wide board, that card can buff your other beasts for +2/+2. That, again, could be pretty obnoxious. So I think the 5 and the 7 mana territory are pretty decent. In 6 mana land, you have some incredible high rolls. Mr. Mukla is a 10/10 rush. That would be fantastic. Krakatoa, another Colossi. Again, it's going to help you push more damage to the face. But you do have some lower rolls. Midnight Wolf is probably the lowest roll. It's still 6 mana 6/6 with rush, though. But obviously compared to like Crab and Mukla, it's not really a comparison. Then in 9 mana land, there are only 2 cards. You've got a 50-50 of King Crush and feeling happy, or Trench Stalker and feeling a little bit deflated. Obviously, Spurfang kicking King Crush out would be insane. And it's super scary, right? If this thing gets to a 9/5, or something like that, a 9x cost, You don't want to be leaving it to a 50-50 that King Crush is going to come out that bad boy and just rush it down next turn. That's pretty spooky. I mean, I guess Trench Stalker as well is going to rush it down on the next turn. So obviously the dream would be to get this to 9 in your hand. You're probably not going to be able to do that though, so... But yeah, big beasties abound. And then finally, I put the 8 mana in here, and I actually think the 8 mana is a bit of a dip in quality, so I think you're going to try and avoid 8. There's only 3 beasts. Uzamat Thunderbringer, the new card from the set, and or that was being given to us before the set came out. And Invincible. Thunderbringer rewards you for having elementals and beasts in your deck. You might want to add an elemental to your deck just so that if you do roll into Thunderbringer, you get another draw from it potentially, but I think that's probably a rough deal. Also, you might not want to pull the beast out of your deck via the Death Rattle if you've got good battle cries in your deck. Admittedly, a lot of the ones shown so far are Death Rattle, so it's not too bad. Uzamat, I think, is your highest roll because you get a lot of tendrils, which you might saddle up and give you a bunch more beasts in the future. And Invincible, at the very least, is an 8 mana 5/5 with Reborn. It does work with undeads. There are beast undeads in the deck. Unfortunately, you don't get his battle cry effect, but if you happen to have an undead beast and, like, the Sin Runner, I don't think you'll have Sin Runner in the deck, by the way, but, you know, just humour me here. If you have something like that, then maybe Invincible becomes a higher roll than it otherwise is. But at the very least, it's going to push 5 damage towards the face and be annoying to remove. Alright, and now we get to other beasts, and this is a beast I don't think will quite make this package, but maybe it does. So a 3 mana 2/3 beast, Silver Serpent. Rush, Poisonous, and Quick Draw, my favourite mechanic, gain immune this turn. It's kind of a little bit difficult to evaluate this card. There's not been too many Rush Poisonous minions. Imported Tarantula kicked out 2 spiders with Poisonous and Rush. I did actually see some play competitively. That was in part though because it happened to be a 5 mana beast, and that was important for other tutors. Possibly a better comparison is One Hit Wonder, which is actually a no-hit wonder. It sees no play in any deck, and has combo get Poisonous on it. Now, I know what you're saying, you know, the quick draw effect is gain immune this turn. So if you do play it on that turn, you can see it as 3 mana destroy a minion. That's obviously a good effect, but are you going to quick draw this that often? Probably not. If you hand buff it, are you happy with that? Not super happy. Because you have to remember that Poisonous, you can kind of see as infinite attack. So Infinity +1 doesn't matter, right? So you're really only getting the health gain from that. A lot of the Hunter cards are more attack orientated. Obviously, a lot of the ones we've shown have been health as well. So maybe if you get this beyond the breaking point, you might get 2 attacks off instead. I'm not entirely certain. I've not sat down yet and built this Beast Hunter deck that I'm thinking of, but I don't think the Silver Serpent will make the cut. It probably would do in a Highlander deck though, but as I said, I don't think the Highlander deck is going to be particularly good. Also, just as a note, there is another neutral called Trapdoor Spider, which has Stealth Poisonous. After your opponent plays a minion, attack it. Very similar card, so maybe there's a world where Hunter just tries to lock out your opponent's board with these snakes and spiders and just keep killing them. I don't think it'll be a thing though. I don't think you'll run either of these in your Beast Hunter deck. And then finally, the card that makes no sense towards any of the other sets that's coming out, but makes sense to decks that exist right now. We have the Star Shooter. 4 mana 2/3 weapon. After your hero attacks, get an Arcane Shot. Arcane Shot being a 1 mana arcane spell that does 2 damage. Actually an insane card. It might even blow some of the other decks out the water, funnily enough, that Hunter is trying to support, this Beast Hunter archetype. So, probably the most played deck right now from the Hunters is the Secret Hunter package, which kind of switches into this face arcane damage deck. They run Arcane Shot in that deck. So, a weapon that could generate you 3 arcane shots is really good. And I think it will see play in the Spell Hunter deck. It works particularly well as well with something like Silvermoon Farstrider. You play the weapon on 4, you attack 3 times, keep these arcane shots in your hand, and then you buff them with your Silvermoon Farstriders to make them deal 3 instead, where you're then very happy and your opponent is very sad. This will probably be competing with plays with the 6-drop, I think it's called the Starstrung Bow, which gets discounted for your secrets played in the game and does more damage, but has less charges. It does pump out 10 damage versus this that pumps 6 out over 3 turns, versus 10 over 2. So maybe it's not quite aggressive enough. You are potentially generating 9 damage if you can spell buff the arcane shots though, so I think it's going to be a toss-up. One nice thing about this though is if you put the Star Shooter in your deck, you'll probably remove the Star-Strung Bow from your deck, which actually means you could remove the secret package. And I think one of the downsides to this Arcane Hunter and why it sort of like slowly descended down a little bit, it's still pretty high on the win rates though, is it's pretty easy to play around when you realize that they're probably going to have the secret where it's like if you spend all your mana get a 3 cost. If you don't ever spend your mana fully, the opponent is pretty sad because the secrets don't pop, so the weapon doesn't get cheaper, they can't play their other secrets, so sometimes they have dead draws. You get the gist of it now, so you might be able to remove that secret package, which I think people can play around a little bit better now, and maybe run something even more aggressive than that. Anyway, there's one more card due for Hunter, because this was 9 cards, not the 10 cards we were promised. Weirdly though, we've had both the legendaries, both the epics, so it's probably a common or a rare. I think I decided it was going to be a rare, and who knows what it's going to support. It does feel kind of odd that they just put this arcane spell enabler card in this whole package, but I don't know. You know what my guesstimate right now? I think it's going to be a card that gives like a beast spell damage, and that's going to be trying to tie those 2 packages together, but may never see play. But we'll see. Anyway, if you enjoyed this, why don't you leave a like, comment, subscribe? Everything helps me out, and hopefully I'm going to immediately start filming the rogue one, because the rogue cards are now coming up. We've seen half of those ones. I've not put them on a video yet. I'm kind of intrigued by some of them, and hopefully the other half have come out while I've been recording this, so I'll see you then. Typical. As I was going through production, they released the goddamn 10th card. It's a 10-gallon hat, 2-mana spell. I have no other paraphernalia for this card other than it's really good. The effect is draw a minion, give it +1/+1, and death rattle, get a 10-gallon hat. Obviously, this will go into your Beast Hunter package where you want to buff their stats. It's really good with the cards that I talked about earlier on. Yeah, it's just good stuff. Very similar to the other card whose name I don't remember. Apologies, I've not been able to put a lot of thought into this one. As I said, it came up on the site just as I was about to put this video out, and I was like, oh god damn it, let me do a quick 1-minute vid and attach it to the end of it. There was another card which was like Death Rattle, add the hat back to your hand again. Instead of getting that, which was a 1-mana spell, this is 2 mana, you get a draw with it, plus the 1/1. That card did see some play competitively, not too much though. I think though, because you're also getting rewarded for getting your cards above a certain threshold of attack, that the 10-gallon hat will probably see, it's more likely to see played because of that. So I think this will go into your aggressive Beast Hunter deck. Alright, that's the end of the video for real this time. Goodbye.